it's Guido coming at you with a tank review. We have new tanks, fellas, in 1.24.1. We now have Polish TDs. Check it out. This is the Tier 5, the Zadymka, and that is the first one in the line. So it's about a 2/3 line, goes from Tier 5 to Tier 8. A couple of basic things right off the bat. These are casemate TDs. Number two, the crew is, as you can see up here, commander, gunner, driver, loader with the radio operator on the commander, and that is the same through the entire line. Thank you, Wargaming, for that. They have done that more so in the recent past, but there are a few lines that have come out with goofy crew setups where you've had to move things around. So it is nice to be able to just move the crew from one tank to the other. I did not do that with this one. It only took me 6 games to unlock the Tier 6. As usual, I unlocked all of the modules with the free experience that I had, and I played the tank until I unlocked the next tank. So it took me six battles with all the bonuses, the ×2s, personal reserves, the ×5 for wins. You're going to blast through it. It does not take very much at all. So let's get into it and talk about the Tier 5 Zadymka. Quickly on the tech tree, this is what it looks like. You're going to come off the 14 TP, and then you've got the Tier 5 to the Tier 8. The 8, 9, and 10 have the special mechanic, the Star Shell, which is a very high velocity shell, and does much more damage close and less damage the further out you get. The Tier 5, 6, and 7 are standard cyclical guns on each one of those. No auto loaders, no big HE derps, although I don't know if there is a derp available. If you look at the Zadymka, you're only going to unlock one track, one engine, one radio, and the top gun. There's no real compelling reason to stick with the smaller gun. The large one is sitting at 240 alpha with 150 pen, 188 with, I believe, APCR, as I recall. That is correct. APCR is the gold shell. This is, I believe, a pre-war to early World War II design. It is more or less a napkin tank. There's not even a year up here on the quick write-up that Wargaming put up there, but heavily armored combat vehicle reinforcing prospective medium tanks, caliber large enough to be SPG as required, and drew on British experience in manufacturing holes with large cast parts. It never got beyond schematic blueprints, so at least the first one in the line, and that bodes poorly for the rest of them being any kind of real tank at all. But you know what? Content is king to some extent. You can't overdo it, Wargaming. But in terms of tech tree lines, the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. Premium tanks is another subject. How did I set mine up? I am using a rammer. I have vents. That's what those things are. Bloody vents. And an IA, which is going to help me with the aiming just a little bit. I have 20 gold rounds, a significant amount of HE. Why not? And we have a large kit in the repair kit, a large first aid kit. I'll spit it out here, and some schmlalak. Bread with schmlalak. Schmlalak. All right. Coffee is nice. Let us make a quick comparison with the Zadymka against some of the other tech tree tanks. The old but good Stug 3G, the Simovente, which is a relatively new TD, has come out in the last year or two. The Su-85, another oldie but goodie, and the AT2. So some of those are relatively lightly armored. The AT2 is extremely heavily armored. The Zadymka is kind of in between. The first thing you will notice as we take a look at this and start talking about the gun is this dude is carrying a 240 alpha gun at Tier 5. That is a significant advantage over the rest of these guys at Tier 5. There's not a whole lot of heavy-hitting TDs down here. It's more of pew-pew guns, so it's nice to have that 240. It has a good 150 pen standard round. It's up there with the Stug. Notice how the Stug's got the 135 alpha. What that does for us as we get down here to average damage per minute is it's not top. You got the Simovente is still a little monster at 2,295, but it's competing decently here. It's with the Stug, a little better than the Su-85. But it's a solid all-around gun, I would say. It is a relatively long reload, though. It takes almost 8 seconds, or call it 7.5 seconds to reload. So be a little bit careful if you're used to these other Tier 5s that are kind of spitting rounds downrange. This one will take a little longer, but you're getting the payoff of the 240 alpha. That does let you shut things down a little bit better. As far as the handling goes, we've got a -7 on the depression, which is a little bit painful, although most of these tanks are not great in the depression area. Concealment is down at -8. The painful piece I want you to take a look at is this gun traverse is 5 degrees right and left, and my goodness, that is painful. That is extreme. The rest of these are not great at 15 degrees or so, but 5, it doesn't take a whole lot of a movement left or right before you have tripped or you've hit the gun stop and now you get a bloom. So you are going to be fighting that with this tank a lot. And if we go back out here real quick, notice that it has a bit of a goofy setup. The gun is off to the, if you're looking this way, off to your right side. So that can be good if I'm peeking around a corner this way, but it's very bad if I'm peeking around a corner that's on my right side. It's little design elements like this that can make or break you a lot of times in World of Tanks, just based on where you're going to go try to fight, even what side you spawn on, depending on where the brawl is or where the different cover is. It's a bit painful. You're going to have to fight through that. Alright, so the rest of the gun handling is 2.11 aiming time, which I felt was really fast, but in comparison to the rest of these, isn't really. I mean, it is in reality pretty quick, but look how fast some of these other tanks are going to aim in. And at 0.36 is a decent, not great, but a decent accuracy. That's why I ran the IA, the vents, and some food to bring that down. We'll take a look at my numbers in a second and what that setup gave me when we get back out of the comparison tool here. We talked about the DPM. So what do we have in the gun? It's got an alpha, and it's got enough of the... Why is it doing that? I don't know. It's just highlighting everything. It won't go away. Stop it. I don't like that. Hold on now. There we go. All right, we're back. High alpha gun, decent accuracy, a bit of a long reload to get that payoff of the 240. Holds its own in the DPM game. Nice penetration. You gotta like that. Survivability, we're looking at 100 on the whole armor. This is best in class minus the AT2, which is known as a, not best in class, one of the best amongst these. But of course the AT2 is sitting there with that massive armor at 152 for a tier 5. We're doing all right with 100. You see the angles on it. It's not amazing. If we come over here to Chrome, we can see that we have a little bit, but not much right there. Still, that's pretty good, although the hole is fairly weak. And there's a lot of hole, right? So these numbers are misleading. It says whole armor 100, right? Down there. But that's this, not this. And that's a significant chunk of your tank. So if you're aiming at this fella, if you can get to this hole right here, you're in pretty good shape, minus some, I don't even know if you can get to an auto bounce. Yeah, maybe not. Let's see. If we go to live, there we go. Whoop, there we go. All right, so that makes it look worse, right? Because it's not great. We're not getting a lot of extra out of that little tiny bit of angle right there. All right. The next tank, the tier 6, actually has a bit better armor. It gets up to, I think, 150, and you will get some bounces off of that one. We come down here to survivability. We already did that. Why don't we move on to mobility? That sounds like a good idea, Guido. Off we go. Mobility-wise, we have 50. We can cruise along at 50. That's really nice, fellas. It will get around, not a problem. Probably, I wouldn't even worry about a turbo on this thing based on its speed. You could get a little extra out of it with a turbo, but I wouldn't even think about a turbo. The specific power is good. Not great, but good. So it will get you around the battlefield pretty well. 14 backwards is actually decent. Some of these guys are really slow. The Stug at 10, the AT2 at 10, so that's pretty good. Helps you with the peek out, shoot, and back up. Concealment, it loses out, fellas, quite a bit against the rest of these. It's a pretty dang large TD at tier 5. Quite tall, so it doesn't have great concealment. View range is atrocious. 280. Apparently, there are no viewports on this. It actually cannot see anything other than what's inside of it. 280, my goodness. Looks like the Su-85 has a similar. But down at this lower tier, view ranges are bad. So what does my setup and all those numbers mean in battle? Well, it gives me 240 alpha, no help there with all of the bonuses. 150 pen, again, no help. My rate of fire gets up to 9.42. 6.37 gun loading and jumps the average DPM up to 2,261. And I've brought my dispersion down to 0.32, which makes it a fairly comfortable gun to shoot and a 1.95 aiming time. Fantastic. Speed-wise, we're still at 50. I didn't put anything on for the bonus on that. My camo with my crew, none of them are having any camo right there, and the Brothers in Arms is helping a little bit, but we're up to 22.75 stationary, and then view range only up to 302. That's a big weakness, fellas. The view range is terrible. You're going to be relying on your buddies out there to spot things for you. All right. How did I do? Well, extremely low sample size. I played 6 games. Looks like I won 4 of those. Math in public. Yes, no, maybe so. Yep, 4 and 2. 82% hit rate. Although a lot of those games were pretty close in. I will show you one game as an example of gameplay. Armor use is okay at 0.35. It's hard to take a whole lot away from these numbers on only 6 games. I averaged 1,100 damage. I averaged 288 assist. And we had a game with a maximum experience 1,272. And I did 2,184 on one of the games. So that checks out more or less with a lot of my tier 5 TDs right there. Not a whole lot to pull out of that one. Let's take a quick look at the tier 5. Takeaways here, fellas, before we look into the gameplay and close this thing up, is the crews are the same. I don't really recommend build a tier 5 crew and move them, because you're going to want to use gold to retrain them. What I did with this is I just built this crew. Remember, now with the new patch, they're 100%. I just throw your crew in there if you're planning on grinding through all of the tanks like that and leave them in this tank. It won't take you very long. At tier 6, where the grinds get longer, that's kind of where I recommend starting a crew that you might want to keep on moving and take them up to tier 10, but crews are up to you. There wasn't a premium or anything Polish TD out there, I don't think, or am I wrong? Is it the ship tick, or that's Czech, isn't it? Pretty sure there was not a Polish TD. No, there was not. So unfortunately, there was no crew training going on. Unless you just plain old moved a crew from somewhere else and retrained them into this tank, you could certainly do that as well. But you're probably starting from scratch, or most of you are probably starting from scratch. So I would say put it in the 6. Start with the 6 as the crew that you're going to train and move through. Just throw that out for consideration. But it is easy because they are all the same position and they don't change around. It's not like you have a radio operator that you have to lose. Let's take a look at some gameplay and then we'll wrap. All right, fellas. It's tier 5, my friends. There's not a lot to say about it. It's a casemate TD. Here he is sitting on the battlefield in Westfield. We've spawned over here onto the west side, and I'm going to try to support like a TD would from the little TD hill back here. Good things are that it has enough speed. I like its ability to spin. It actually has a pretty good hull traverse, which is nice if you're trying to track things. Remember, though, that it's only got 5 degrees field of regard, so that is extremely painful. You'll watch me fight that just a little bit here. So I'm going to try to support the heavies. I am in a tier 5 battle, all tier 5s, so that's very helpful as well. There's no 7s beating up on me. 7s will eat this thing for lunch, and I only have 480 hit points to give, right? So what you're trying to do with this tank is stay out of harm's way. You would like to shoot people and not be shot back, and while that goes without saying for a lot of tanks in this game, that would probably be the best way to operate most of them. You're just not going to get many bounces, and it's not very survivable in terms of hit points, so be extra careful with these guys. Here's me fighting this azimuth. I didn't really have a good idea what the azimuth was. As with most new tanks, I just put some equipment that looks good and a crew in it and start playing it and see what happens, and that's where I learn. This was maybe my 2nd or 3rd game, I think. So we're going to hang out here and try to support these guys. Good news. The good news is that 240 alpha hurts. And once you start thumping people, you're doing some pretty good damage, especially at tier 5. Not many hit points here. And recently, Wargaming has added hit points to the lower tiers, and it made the games maybe last just a little bit longer, and your tanks last a little bit longer. So that is nice. But with a 240 alpha, you can really do some pain or cause some pain. So finally, I get up here, and I'm going to start to see some guys moving around. Not quite yet. Looking for shots, not getting spotted, which is nice. Got the KW1 looking around there. Our guys are playing punchy face over there. A lot of times I like to take my armored TDs forward and help out. We'll get some of our first damage right there. There we go. So we drop a 260 on him. That's nice. This guy's not very bright. He's just going to stay out there. He's been hit once by a TD, so he decides why not. Let's get hit twice. And boom, 240. There we go. Got the guy knocked out. I was talking about something and it's completely escaped my mind, but maybe it'll come back to me. Probably had something to do with the 240 Alpha. You can really do some damage closing guys out. Boom. Nice zoom in right there. And we've cleaned up, although things were looking bad, we were able to kind of knock out that heavy brawl down there. I remember what it was, talking about casemate TDs and trying to get up in front and do some punchy face, especially if you've got a decent alpha. The problem, though, is I've only got -7 gun depression, so it's hard to use that ridge, and I only have 480 hit points, which is 2 hits from some of the heavies over there, especially if you start considering, although we have the GBR, don't we? The GBR hits pretty hard, the BDR G1 hits pretty hard. But you get the pew-pew guns, and your 480 can disappear pretty quickly that way as well. Let's say you're only taking on a guy that has 115 alpha, but he's shooting every 3 seconds or so. You're not long for the world if you try to take a dude on like that and you stand in. And remember, this tank, the Zadymka, has a 6-second reload. See how he was sort of backing up? He saw me coming, and then you saw a little sideways. I'm imagining he was trying to figure out how to get that gun online, and of course, when he hits the stop, his hull moves, and then his dispersion explodes, and then everyone goes, "Well, shit, my dispersion's exploded. Let me zoom in." It can be a bit of a pain in the rear, fellas. So we do a little surprise on that guy, and we've got 692. I'm noticing that we have a situation going on back at the cap, and of course, the Muppet heavies are going to keep pushing. This actually helps us a little bit. You'll see what happens as they push. Unfortunately, it does not help us because we lose a couple tanks who are attempting to get into their cap while it's being defended by 2 Arty. There's an AMX ELC wandering around, so I'm going to do what TDs do best for the most part and run away. We're going to come over here and we're going to get these bushes set up as best we can. That's helpful. Really wish I would have actually knocked that down to the left a little bit more, but okay. And we'll make our little nest right here. Hopefully artillery was not watching too closely. The M4A1 is down in the village down there. The KV-1SA is doing some damage, and that's what I was talking about earlier. He does us a solid by getting rid of the artillery, so that is extremely helpful. Probably has drug a few tanks off down there. Might be nice if I was there supporting him, but he's out in the open, and there's no way he's going to move around without the ELC, BIS seeing him. And we find this guy. So their team does kind of what our team is doing, and that is good for us. Walks right into the buzzsaw of the Camp-A-Lama Ding Dang, and now we're just doing TD things, right? I'm not showing you something unbelievable that the Zadymka is so freaking great at than any other TD. This is essentially how you want to play these kinds of TDs. You want to be able to shoot and not be seen. 240 Alpha is beautiful. You see we closed that guy out with a 204 blap, took all the hit points he had. That's a nice thing, isn't it? Because I take 1 shot and I get rid of that guy as opposed to 2, which then have to get through the dispersion mechanic, have to get through the penetration mechanic, have to get through the alpha mechanic, and try to take out the 200. Oh, watch what happens right here. This is, oh boy. Looks like it went right and got into his track. And I am extremely thankful that, that's a bummer, right? Oh, I thought I had fired. It was actually the guy blowing up. Unfortunately, the other Zadymka was out in the open like a Muppet, so he gets killed. That makes me know that the Churchill is somewhere nearby. Reference earlier when I talked about that the view range is terrible in general down at tier 5. I should have been spotted by, if this was a higher tier at all, I'd have been spotted by shooting from this bush because I'm not 15 back, but whatever it was not close enough. It was certainly just close enough to obviously to see the other Zadymka. And we end up killing off their scout, and that did us a massive solid, because if he was able to keep himself alive, there's virtually no way we win this game. I rushed that shot, don't get it, and that cost me a bit, because he's going to sneak around the building right there, and that is quite unfortunate. Just for reference sake, take a look at the green line, guys. That's my spotting range. Yikes! And he just got inside it, so I think maybe the LEF saw him, because the LEF actually has pretty damn good spotting range, but oh, I get lit. I'm just going to stand in, guys. I know they don't have Arty, and he's just making a move down here. Now I'm sneaking around, kind of hoping that this M4A1 is not very bright, and he appears not to be. I get lit again, so it looks like it went dark. And then he gets nuked by the LEF, and oh, that's why I didn't see him come around the building. He actually ran over there and started going after the LEF, who is frustrating the living snot out of him because first, Pew Pew, he doesn't have enough beef to kill the guy off, and he probably bounced some shots. There he got him. And we got him. Fantastic. 2,184. 6 kills. The hero of the game. Kampalama Ding Dang. It's casemate TD, fellas. I like the 240 Alpha. Good on the Chinu for attempting to reset the KV-1SA or kill him before I got over there. But we ended up with a top gun, 2,100 damage. That was the top game that I had out of the 6. Nothing incredibly surprising right there at all. In the write-up, it does mention that that big box on the back is where the ammo is. So I think that's the ammo rack. I couldn't find anything that had the modules overlay on it yet. Let me know down below if you know that. But if that is, you find one of these things, maybe you want to just aim for that big box. You might get an ammo rack out of the thing and burn them down. So that's the gameplay. Let's go back to the garage and wrap it up. All right, fellas, there you go. A little bit about the tank. You saw a gameplay there. It's a fairly bog standard casemate TD at tier 5. It's quite large, so camo's not great. Gun hits hard. You got to like it. It's got a decent enough amount of handling. As I said, I got mine down to 0.32 dispersion. Aim time down to 1.95 with this setup. Yes, I am tryharding with food, all that good stuff. But I like to make the guns comfortable at this point because I am an older person and I don't want to fight with the dispersion any more than I have to. So there. Take that. What else is there to say? 240 Alpha, man. You got to like it at tier 5. Other than that, you're not going to jump in this thing and feel like necessarily King Kong, but it is absolutely competent, and it was not a problem to grind. I did not grind the stock gun, so understood. If you're grinding the stock gun, that could be a little more painful, but these days, it doesn't take much to grind the lower tiers down there. So I think you'll enjoy this. And last but not least, the beautiful part about this, which I very much appreciate Wargaming doing, is tier 4 and 5 make battle pass points now. So while you're grinding down here at tier 5, in this particular case, you're going to make battle pass points, so it's not a waste of time. Very cool. Very cool. That's all I've got. Let me know what you think of this tank down below there, guys. Did you skip it? Did you play it? Do you like it? That's all I've got. We will see ya.